Hello, everyone. Welcome to New Gen Politics. The second Republican presidential primary debate was last night, so let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we'll see who came out at the end of the night as winners and as losers. And so starting out on the loser side, we have Mike Pence. Does anybody actually remember anything Mike Pence said last night? I mean, he just looks so tired. I mean, look at him. He looks like what they found in Mexico. He's worn down. He knows his poll numbers are low. He doesn't have any enthusiasm or really a plan that's much different from any other candidate. His time in the spotlight's over. It ended with Trump. It's time to push him a little bit further right till he's completely off stage. Next up, Doug Burgum. And there's only one thing to say about Burgum's performance last night.
Stuart, can we get back to the question? The question is on technology.
Governor DeSantis, I'm going straight.
On this stage
Sir, we will have to cut your mic, and I don't want to do that. I don't.
I mean, he got shot down like he was asking Dana Perino out to prom. Again and again, they silenced him, they skipped over him, they halted him from making any comments. Just a very poor showing. When he did make some comments, they were pretty good. He has some good points, he's a businessman, and he's got good experience in the energy sector. But he doesn't seem to have the fight he needs to be president. And speaking of somebody who has the fight to be president, here's Christie, who surprisingly only had one really good moment last night, and it was him landing a direct punch on Vivek.
Every person on this stage has shown the respect for Republican voters to come here, to express their views honestly, candidly, and directly, and to take your questions honestly. I have respect for every man and woman on this stage because they've done it. Vivek, put your hand down for a second, would you?
The rest of the night, performance, pretty adequate. Nothing really exceptional. Banked on his record as governor, which was successful. There's a lot of questions last night that had to do with upscaling problems that states are facing and handling on a national level. So things like education, things like crime. How can we solve these issues? Especially, how would you solve these issues if you were president? And Christie had a good basis. He's dealt with these issues as governor, and he understands how to scale it up. I'm sure he would do great at addressing those issues. But other than that, pretty adequate performance. And next, we'll move to tonight's biggest loser. And it may be a surprise to some, since most people agreed he won the last debate. Tonight's biggest loser is Vivek Ramaswamy. As soon as Vivek came out and talked about how we should have a nice civil discussion, I knew it was over. Vivek's supposed to be this guy, this outsider, who's going to tell it to you straight. He's going to give alternate opinions. He's not bought and paid for. He's kind of like Trump 2.0. He's a little rough around the edges. He wants to talk about the small issues, along with the big issues. He wants to say things other candidates won't say, and to go against not only the Democratic Party, but the Republican Party. And that's what he did in the last debate. That's why he won. He did such a good job. He not only took every blow that was thrown at him, he dished them out. But tonight, for some reason, he flipped the script. Some staffer probably told him, "You sounded a little too aggressive last time. Maybe you should vie for peace in this debate." And that killed him. He got sucker punched 3 times by Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, and Christie. And Tim Scott was going after him like crazy.
When we have a conversation about the things that are happening on this stage, we think about the fact that Vivek just said we were all good people. And I appreciate that because last debate, he said we were all bought and paid for. And I thought about that for a little while and said, you know, I can't imagine how you could say that knowing that you were just in business with the Chinese Communist Party and the same people that funded Hunter Biden millions of dollars was a partner of yours as well. It's not nonsense.
So look, here's what I want to respond.
He was chasing Vivek down like a dog after a car. I mean, it was on site between Vivek and Tim Scott. And Tim Scott won. Because while Vivek was trying to go for peace, the other candidates were going to war. And it made him come off as a little bit contradictory, a little bit wishy-washy on where he stands and who he is as a person. There's already been a lot of criticism about, is Vivek genuine? I think he is, but the problem is he tried to act in a political manner. He's supposed to be the non-politician who's going to give it to you straight. And that guy did not show up last night. Instead, it was his polar opposite. And I think it'll turn a lot of people off, seeing what he said last time about everyone being bought and paid for, and then saying that he respects everyone on the stage now. Something happened in the last month. I don't know what, but it certainly hasn't done him any favors. So next we'll move on to the winners of the night. And we'll start with Vivek's new rival, the man who gave Vivek the biggest pounding, Tim Scott. Tim Scott actually showed up last night. In the first debate, he was sleepy, he was low energy, He didn't have any strong positions. You didn't really know what he stood for. But this time, he came out swinging, and he was fighting other candidates. He fought Vivek, and he fought Nikki Haley hard. And you saw a little bit of energy. You saw, wait a minute, this guy might be able to be a president. He might have the energy, he might have the charisma, he might have the grit to do it. He was much clearer on his policies, much more aggressive, and that's exactly what we need to see from him. Last night saved him. This will keep him in the race, and I think it'll actually raise his poll numbers. I'm a little surprised, but pleasantly so. So I think we'll be seeing more of Tim Scott as we move forward in this election cycle. Now after him was Nikki Haley. And she's a big threat in the polls. She has a very high margin in terms of beating Biden, and she's gaining ground in the Republican primary. And she had some good moments, she had some bad moments, but I think overall, she stands out. She's got a clear agenda. She's got a clear personality. It's not one I'm particularly fond of, her being very pro-war, me being very anti-war, especially pointless forever wars, the kind that we've been in for the last several decades. She's just kind of adopted that neocon war hawk side of the party, and they seem to be loyal to her, and they like her. And I think last night she did a good job, and she showed she's not afraid to be combative. She's willing to go toe-to-toe with anybody who challenges her, even showing this by being one of the only candidates to go after DeSantis. And speaking of DeSantis, DeSantis was last night's big winner. I mean, he did a great job. He did exactly what he needed to do. He attacked Trump a little bit. He gave very clear policy plans, something that he was severely lacking in the last debate. The last debate, he was trying to stay alive. That was the point. He was afraid he was going to be attacked. He was losing ground quickly. This time, he needed to strike out on his own. He needed to prove himself as the number two. He needed to define his policies that are different than every other candidate's and Trump's, because that's what he's going to win on, his policies. And some of them are phenomenal. And he did a very, very good job of showcasing those last night. So I think Ron will maintain the second spot because he was clear on immigration, foreign wars, crime. He was clear on who he is, what he's done as governor, and what he will do as president. And so that wraps it up for the candidates. But how about the rest of the debate in general? The moderators at the beginning did a very bad job of reining in the candidates, nothing pretty surprising. But towards the end, they were very clear about the time constraints. I think having 3, totally unnecessary. Have 1, maybe 2. And they asked some pretty good questions. They asked some hard-hitting questions to some of the candidates, some more so than I would have expected. Some certainly stronger than last time. But I gotta say, my favorite question of the whole night, and I swear, I called this right before it even happened. I said, wouldn't it be funny? Last question, who should we vote off the island? And lo and behold, it happened. Dana Perino's final question, if you could vote one candidate out of the race, who would it be? And surprisingly, they all declined to answer. You know, it could have ended a lot worse. Could have been a lot more bloodshed. And then I said to my friend who I was watching the debates with, you know what would be a really good answer here? Say you want to vote out Trump. And then he did it. The mad lad. Christie actually said it. And it was a great, almost powerful moment. I want to vote out Trump. Solidarity with the other candidates, respecting them, and then attacking Trump. His whole purpose in this election, attack Trump. And he finally nailed him. And it was honestly a good burn and a good payday for Christie shareholders. So what'll happen in the debates going forward? Well, the requirements will get stricter. I think we can probably say goodbye to Mike Pence. We can finally let him go to bed. And Doug Burgum. I'm sorry, Burgum boys. The Burgum momentum looks like it's slowing down. And I thought we were going to say goodbye to Tim Scott. But actually, I think now he'll stick around. So I think the 5 that remain, the 5 strong candidates, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Christie, I think we'll see them in the next debate. But there's only one person I really want to see in the next debate, Donald Trump. When he finally shows up, if he finally shows up, the game will be completely different. And I look forward to that day with bated breath. Who do you think won? Who do you think lost? Who do you support? Who do you not? Let me know down in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.